The Australian Rugby League had a problem. Too many teams were struggling financially. They wanted to expand to other markets, but with 11 teams in Sydney, this was hard. Aussie rules was growing bigger and better. Local competitions in WA and South Australia were getting record crowds and threatened to add to the growing popularity of the VFL if they added their own teams, similar to what Brisbane did. With all the money in the world, countless connections the world over, and a sneaky plan to make even more money, enter Rupert Murdoch and Newscorp to make this whole thing a hell of a lot worse before it got better. This is the Super League War.
Friday night's a great night for football.
I can't remember any other.
This is actually not Friday night or...
No, it's
even
not.
on Friday night, but
It's
still.
a Saturday night.
That's my team.
Okay, yeah, I remember that
That's
one.
my team.
That's a good one.
You're simply the best.
That's a couple of years too early now. I mean, we go through that era.
Better than all the... RIP to a real one.
Yes.
Stole your line.
Well, we're all wearing jerseys.
We are wearing jerseys.
Some better than others.
The City jersey is the worst jersey. It's so bad.
Why is it bad?
Number one, it has a non-correct colour on it. I get that it's doing this gradient thing, but a big strip of pink is not right. Penrith have got the pink thing all packaged up, and I don't like it.
It's a Queensland sunset.
It's not a Queensland sunset.
That's the colour of a Queensland sunset.
Oh, it's awful.
So for anyone that's not Australian or doesn't care about rugby league, these are jerseys for our teams. I'm wearing a very old, not very old, it's from like the mid-2000s.
Medium old.
It has multiple companies that don't exist anymore on it. Ansett, for example.
Yes.
And it's far too big.
Why didn't you do your right shoulder?
Because that was the one I saw before and I remembered it was there. It's got signatures though.
Ansett
What have you got?
Walters Brothers, Gordon Tallis.
It's older than you think it is. Ansett went into liquidation in 2002.
Yeah, I think it's a 2001 jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they went
Never forget.
Never forget Ansett.
Current Brisbane coach.
Yeah. And it's also far too big. So enjoy seeing the chest.
It's medium too big.
Well, I've got
I wouldn't say it's
the
far too big.
special jersey from last season.
Boo.
The City jersey where they debuted playing against the Redcliffe Dolphins and beat them.
They did.
Fins up, baby.
Fins up, baby.
Dolphins till I die.
Yeah, anybody except the Titans till I die.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. The Tweed
Our
Titans.
house.
Tweed Titans.
Suncorp's our house.
Oh, here we go.
And Sean is wearing a...
Suncorp was your house until you got annoyed at sponsorship deals and left it and then went and played at ANZ Stadium for a little while.
Well, that's going to come up.
It is going to. Well, it's going to.
No, they left Lang Park because it was under redevelopment. Wasn't it?
They left Lang Park over a sponsorship dilemma.
Oh, who cares?
Sean's wearing a Cowboys jersey.
I am wearing a Cowboys jersey. I am a North
but
Queensland.
not those Cowboys.
No.
Not the chokers.
Just, I know you've got the button ready, even though it's not a real button, but Dak Prescott. You heard me, cheesy. Anyway, I'm wearing a 1995. I'm wearing a 1995 North Queensland Cowboys jersey, the first year of their entry into the competition, which is very pertinent.
1995, you said?
Yeah, 95 was their first year in the competition.
I was going to say, you don't have that other jersey readily available, do you?
Yeah, no.
I was
No,
just
the
gonna say,
92
because
Broncos
you can
jersey.
tell On Aaron's jersey, you got the NRL symbol. Mine also has, mine's different as well, the Telstra Premiership.
Mm-hmm.
Sean
And we've
says
got the Australian RL,
The
ARL.
Australian Rugby League.
And I believe yours would have the old...
It's the New South Wales Rugby
RL.
League. Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of history right there.
There is
For
a fair bit of history.
If any of our British listeners, Super League. Is it Super League over there?
Yes.
Yeah. Not that Super League.
No. So,
I was going to say, are we excited for round one, which will be coming out
Oh, yeah.
The weekend
reason we're doing this episode now.
after the episode? I'm excited that there's going to be 2 games being played in Las Vegas. I'm actually excited for that.
I'm not.
I wish I was there. I would love to be there just to
John's a massive gambler.
just to gauge the Americans' reaction to our game.
You're not going to get Americans there. You're just going to get
expat Aussies that are traveling. I'm not on board. I feel like if they could have done anything. They could have picked some sort of symbiotic relationship with NFL teams that might have similar sponsors or similar mascots or similar things. But no, they've just gone all in on Vegas's new stadium, and I don't like it.
I understand wanting to expand the game. I don't think it's going to work.
No.
I'm all for it. I'm happy to see the reactions from the Americans. I think you are going to get Americans there, especially if they put it at a price point cheaper than an NFL game.
It's
And
Vegas.
having-
That's not hard.
It's
And
also
having two
Vegas.
games back to back is going to be probably the same length as one NFL game. So they're not going to feel
I know.
cheapened out by, like, if you buy an NFL ticket, you're there for 4.5 hours.
This is
Yeah.
the place that deliberately put up like blocking views of certain hotels when the
Yeah.
Formula One was on because they didn't want people that hadn't paid for a Formula One view room to be able to see the race. They put up deliberate blocks so that people couldn't
Was
see
that
the
the
track.
city or was that Formula One?
Both.
Vegas is not a great place to live.
No.
Mm.
And
Anyway, I am excited for the NRL to be back.
I am, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Cowboys Dolphins at Suncorp, round 1, Dolphins home game. Should be fun. Fins up. Obviously, I want the Cows to win, but I want to see the Dolphins start strong so that we can enter a deeper era of Queensland
all
dominance.
the Queensland teams.
All the Queensland,
dominating.
yeah, except the Tweed teams.
They're not
The-
Queensland.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
the Dolphins are looking like a good team this year,
Yes.
like with Farnworth and Falegla being injected. A couple of ex-Broncos.
Mhm.
They're very good players. I reckon they should do pretty well.
I think so.
They started amazing last year and then fell off in the back half, but they got a bit more depth in their side this year, so they should actually go a bit deeper into the season. I'm going to say finishing 7 for the Dolphins.
7?
In the finals. Yep.
Ooh, first finals.
I put Dolphins at a.
Timestamp this and we'll come back in early September?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll remember that.
I'm going to put Dolphins at a embattled 8.
Okay.
Like a Carlton just trying to scrape through kind of scenario. Like they're fighting for 8th all the way to the very end.
Just glad to be there.
Do you want to have a prediction, boy?
I don't think the Broncos have it this year.
We're not talking about the Broncos, but
I know. I think that the Dolphins, I think that they start strong again, and then maybe around Origin time, they fall out of it and they never bring it back. They finish 12th.
so you don't think Broncos can go one better this year?
No.
I think they can.
It's very rare that a team that doesn't win the grand final
Then
makes it
wins
back.
Yeah. I
It
don't know.
happens, but
I
it
see
doesn't happen
the
all that often.
Broncos making a decent finals run. Like they're definitely not a first round knockout kind of team. Like they're going to have a good run at it.
Semi-finals maybe.
Semis, yeah.
Mm.
I see the Cowboys and the Broncos both sitting at semis this year. If the Cowboys can hold on to some momentum from the last 2 years, but that's an
Broncos
aging
Cowboys
team.
semi-final,
That yeah.
potentially.
The big question is how long does it take for the Tigers to win a game?
Round 1. They're going to win their first game.
They'll win at 50-0.
I don't know who they're playing.
Tigers first up. Let's see.
Let me just get my phone. Oh,
29-24 is
Yeah.
not a year
it's over there.
that's happening anytime soon.
I think the Tigers have the first week off.
Points on the board.
Is it? Do you get points for
Yeah,
that?
you get 2 points for a bye.
Oh, right. I mean, it's not a win.
It's points on the board.
So weird that they give points for a bye.
All right, round 1, Seagulls and Rabbitohs, Roosters, Broncos, Raiders, Knights, Warriors, Sharks, Storm and Panthers, great. That's going to be fun. Parramatta, Canterbury, the Tweed versus the Dragons, Dolphins, Cowboys, and a bye for the Tigers.
Points on the board for Tigers. Round
Points
1.
on
called
the
it.
board.
Not a win.
And then the Tigers they got the Raiders the week after for round 2. Sorry, Tigers fans.
I don't know if the Raiders are going to be anything decent.
Nah.
Oh,
I know a few Raiders fans. I'm sorry, but they've lost a few key players last season.
yeah, I'm not seeing Raiders in the 8.
This is so specific for people that care
I know.
about
I know.
NRL.
Yeah, it is. We should. Okay, so the reason we're doing this episode is because it is coinciding with the first round of the rugby league season. And like without a shadow of a doubt, even in the well over 100-year history, coming up to 120-year history of the rugby league in Australia, the Super League war is both contentious, important, really, really problematic from a fan perspective, fantastic from a player perspective. But as a league as a whole, it kind of ruined a lot of what the momentum already had with rugby league in Australia at the time. They had a couple of great seasons before this, and they were having record crowds, and then this just shot them in the butt.
Guess we'll find out.
Yeah. So for those that are new to rugby league, this is perfect. You get to understand why people talk about Super League War. Might be why you hear someone complain about pay television to do with rugby league, and you think, what does that have to do with the price tags in China? Well, this is what it's about.
I mean, I think everybody understands sport and pay TV is annoying.
Oh yeah, but this is the big ticket beginning.
I think you needed
because
3 to watch the NFL. But it's not too bad in Australia. If you have one streaming service, you've got it all.
Yes.
But
what is it?
in the NFL, you
CBS.
need CBS,
NBC,
NBC,
and Fox.
ABC, Fox,
And then
Peacock, Amazon.
NFL's own.
No, you
No,
can
that
see
doesn't
every
count.
game
You
if
can
you've
see
got.
every count. That's
Yeah,
yeah.
but you still need 5, including 2 streaming platforms.
Yes.
Well, I just discovered that because Keen's been wanting to watch soccer.
Mm.
So to watch
no.
soccer, I need Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and watching it in this country.
Yeah. Optus
But no-
lost the
The A League. Watching
Yeah.
the A League, I need Paramount Plus.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Nobody cares.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Anyway,
Should we kick it off?
Good one. I was going to say spiral past us the story.
Oh, that's you can do better. Kick it off. It was right there, and you missed it.
Dummy into the in goal, and
Let's make a line break.
I'll dummy, and
Stupidest
then
statistic in
kick
rugby league.
Grubber into the in goal, and you can put your hand
Oh
on
my
it.
God, I
and
wanna
score
chip
a
and
try.
chase.
Yeah,
his
chip and
thing.
chase.
I
Outta
want to chip
here.
and chase it. Let's go, Sean.
My
Let's put a
God,
pass.
yeah.
Oh, that was
Little
a,
Alfie Langer, chip and chase. Let's go.
that was a real knock on from me.
The little general. Alfie, if you're listening, please.
Why aren't you wearing the Alfie hat?
Because I'm wearing a Cowboys jersey. I didn't want to wear my
Oh.
Alfie Langer hat with my Cowboys jersey. Yes, I'm a Cowboys
Sean
fan.
has a hat for a specific player.
Alfie Langer is my favorite player of all time. The little general, my hero. I scream at him every time I go to a game and he's there and he never hears me. And it breaks my heart every time. I nearly paid a lot of money to have dinner with him.
I play cricket at his field.
Alan Langer Field at Blair State School.
Yeah, Alan Langer Oval.
That's thin.
That's what
That's
it's called.
the
It's
thing.
called Alan Langer Oval.
That's a subtle rag. Anyway, yes, it is.
I met his mum there when I worked at the school too. I believe she was still working there last I checked.
Wow, John's really connected.
Really
guys.
connected. So,
Get us tickets, boy.
I've got better connections than that. You know it. If you're watching, Mitch.
can
Mitch who?
Mitch who?
Mitch who?
He's not watching.
He's not watching.
It's okay though.
Brother of someone famous?
Yeah, brother of someone famous of Akator from Home and Away.
Mm-hmm.
That's really mean to Mitch. He's famous too.
Mitch is my favourite, Lewis. He knows that.
Well, I'll take that, Wally.
And Lincoln. Anyway.
Jeez, now we're ranking the Lewises.
Oh no.
Oh, no, what have we
Oh,
done?
no. The spiral. Okay.
Oh,
Let's get into the story. What are we at?
torpedo in.
18
October
minutes.
4th, 1984. Rugby
I'm not
League
alive.
Week magazine. Man, what a rag that was. Rugby League Week magazine featured an interview with the then Queensland Rugby League chairman, Ron McAuliffe. Ron brought to light a proposal to expand the then New South Wales Rugby League competition with several new teams. His plans were for what he described as a super league. Are you
No.
like,
I didn't yawn.
It's your first paragraph.
I didn't-
it's the first paragraph.
He
You know what?
100% yawned.
You didn't have to call it out. Nobody's going to see it.
You looked right at me.
Yeah, because I'm listening. Active listening.
On the replay in slow-mo.
In slow-mo. Piece this in.
We're going to have to start filming at 60 FPS
Yeah,
now so we're
yeah.
in slow-mo.
Cheesy's going to be flipping his beer at the screen right now. This is crazy. Anyway, his plans were for what he described as a super league with 12 clubs from across New South Wales and Queensland across 2 divisions with a system of relegation and promotion. All right, something's pretty new to what we had going at the time. Relegation and promotion is something that features really, really, really heavily these days in association football around the world, mainly in England and the United Kingdom and in soccer.
The Premier.
Premier.
Yeah, the
League.
Premier League, but there's
Premier.
that's a league within the
PPL.
within the football league system of it's just the highest league. Anyway, it's almost unheard of due to the size of this country and the lack of capital cities. Like it's not going to work. Like if you have promotion and relegation, the NT Thunder, it would be brilliant to have them in the AFL, but it's just not going to happen.
EP Jets.
EP Jets. Oh, don't if they.
The,
They're going to ruin it and they're going to make them the Western Jets. And
Yeah.
they put them in Springfield. And that's what everybody in the barbershop's riling me up about at the moment. And I hate it.
oh, they
Yeah,
might-
well,
they'll
because
be
the
a-
Lions are kind of screwing Springfield at the moment.
No, they're
North
screwing Ipswich when they're like, oh, we're putting the new training facility in Ipswich. It's like, but the
Yeah.
Ipswich economy doesn't get any of that. The Ipswich Council does because
Yeah.
they own Springfield.
I don't think they'll leave North Ipswich Reserve.
I think they will.
need a bigger stadium there.
Yes.
Yeah.
If they do was it what's the Tiger Stadium? It's like 15,000 seats.
Yeah.
Something
like that.
Some Sydney teams have small stadiums. They do
Yes.
that in Ipswich. It'll be packed out every game.
Now that the Dolphins are in, I don't think Ipswich makes it.
No, I don't think
They'll,
so.
Although-
they'll go for
The next team will be Papua New Guinea.
No.
No,
It'll
too
be
much
Perth.
logistics. It'll be Perth.
It'll be PNG.
No way. The Hunters, they're not ready. Like the logistics, and they're mad. They're crazy fans over there, but the logistics of flying teams back and forth to Port Moresby is too high. Plus security risks, it's a lot.
The Titans, did they play at North Ipswich Reserve today or tomorrow?
No idea. Don't care.
No idea. Yeah,
One
I
or the
don't care.
other. They're playing in Ipswich this weekend.
Get
So-
out of here, Tweed.
Anyway, so the quote that Ron McAuliffe had in particular in this magazine was, he said, "From my point of view, the thoughts are preliminary at this
The
stage."
Jedi are evil.
He said, "It has yet to be discussed with the New South Wales League and the ARL, but it will happen. I have no doubt about that." So this is a pretty confident statement. Discussions about the number of teams and also the location of the teams was very vague in the early days of talks, 12 being the most common number that they wanted for a league. You got to remember there was 20 teams in the New South Wales Rugby League at the time, with 11 of them in Sydney. That's a lot.
20 teams.
can
I
you-
didn't realize it was that
Can
high.
you name
was-
any of the teams that existed before mergers?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
No foreboding. We'll
Sorry.
get to that. Anyway, but the biggest issue was also that they wanted to spread the teams out to get them away from the majority in Sydney so that they could, expand into bigger markets.
Mhm.
What?
Illawarra.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, Illawarra what?
And Bears
Were
what?
the it was the North Sydney Bears.
Oh, you got it. Nice, very
But
nice.
then Illawarra were Illawarra the Dragons?
No, they were
St. George
Steelers.
was always the Dragons. Yeah.
Illawarra were the Steelers.
Yeah.
First non-Sydney team to be admitted.
And
Anyway,
they had the Knight as their mascot.
no, that's St. George.
Crushers?
No,
No,
the
the Crush.
Dragon.
Huh?
The Dragon was St. George, and
Yeah.
the Knight was Illawarra.
No,
No,
Illawarra was the Steelers. It was a steel worker with a helmet.
Was it?
St. George
Looked
is
like a knight to me. I was young.
St. George has a dragon. The dragon is not called St. George. St. George, the knight, is killing the dragon, as is the story of St. George and the dragon. Come on, man.
Nerd.
I suspect Sean's done some research.
I think so.
St. George is also the patron saint of like so many damn things. Paratroopers, friggin' firefighters also. No, not firefighters, St. Barbara. Anyway, getting away from that. The biggest issue was obviously the teams being in Sydney, they need to move them out. Ron stated, the way I see it, there's going to be much ground sharing and club sharing in the future to try and facilitate this. He continued and said, in fact, I can foresee club amalgamations in both Brisbane and Sydney. This is in 1984.
Yeah.
That's foreboding.
Okay.
That's how you do it. Don't just jump in with a question. That's how you forebode.
How do we get the Western Tigers, boy?
We'll get to
Balmain.
that. It's a 5-page script. We'll get to that, please.
Don't you ask questions.
Anyway,
I'm done. I don't need this.
How many times have I said don't touch it while you're talking?
Continue.
Oh, we've had our first tanty on
there
set.
we go. I've got a couple of spare nappies. Like,
Okay, come on.
anyway, there were also rumours and discussions from within the New South Wales Rugby League about adjusting the competition, with the majority of talks about the amalgamation of the Sydney teams and also new teams in Queensland. At this stage in history, the New South Wales Rugby League was the governing body of the national competition. It wasn't necessarily the ARL. The New South Wales Rugby League did manage the national competition. And in 1992, a blueprint for the expansion of rugby league was tabled by the Premiership Policy Committee of the New South Wales Rugby League, followed in August by an organisation review by Dr. G. Bradley, which was distributed to the Premiership clubs. Whole bunch of reports written by people that think they know stuff about what's going on. They talk a lot, but nothing really gets done. The Bradley report in particular, as it became known, was central to the ARL replacing the New South Wales Rugby League as the governing body, which is what they did throughout the mid-90s. The ARL then took over the domestic top-tier competition rather than just worrying about international matches and the national team. The report concluded in a sort of quote and summary, to reduce the number of clubs in Sydney, it would be very hard for the league to implement given the long playing traditions of some of those clubs. In the long term, however, it is likely that Sydney is not going to be able to support 11 clubs as it does at present. Therefore, in the long term, this is the only viable solution. Sydney-based clubs are going to have to move to new areas, merge, or be relegated from the league, and this is going to be a painful process. In the long term, I believe the ARL should be looking to reduce the number of clubs in the national competition to 14, thus allowing clubs to play 2 complete rounds. This will mean, assuming that only 4 new clubs are admitted from areas outside Sydney, that there will be only 5 clubs based in Sydney for this ideal situation.
So they go from 11 to 5.
Yes. That's a big shift.
Yeah.
That's a big shift. Imagine some of those mergers.
Mm.
Ideal merger, John? 2 teams in Sydney?
Don't know.
I'll stop being
I mean,
PC and
for the chaos, I'd love to see the Roosters forced to merge with the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, that was my first thought as well.
Oh, really?
They're so close to each other. It's crazy.
I just Western
Remember
Tigers.
we walked from Sydney, which is like where the Roosters are based, to Red Hill,
Did we?
Redfern.
Oh.
Redfern.
Did we?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 2 train stops.
You and I
It's so
stayed
close.
at Central and we walked through Redfern to get to that event that we were going to.
I did not put those
Yeah,
together
that's
at
how
the time.
close they all are.
Yeah, all right. Western Tigers. Do you know the 2 clubs that formed, that merged?
Sean, is this part of your part
Yeah,
of your
yeah.
script?
Well, it doesn't matter. It's
It's-
common knowledge.
Balmain and
Domain what?
the Balmain Tigers
Mhm.
and who was it? Leichhardt. No,
Nope.
Leichhardt
No.
Oval's the
That's Balmain's field.
yeah. No, who was the other team?
Western
The
Suburbs,
Western Suburbs
Magpies.
That's right. I kept thinking the Magpies for the
Sea
Dragons.
Town. Campbelltown. It's the suburb in Western Sydney where they were based.
I think the Magpies had a great jersey from memory.
It's black and white. Had Victor
Yeah.
Lawnmowers on the front. It was
That's
dope.
why.
I'm just trying to think of any other mergers I remember from my time.
Well, the Broncos are a merger team, aren't they? No,
Nope.
the Lions are a merger team.
Lions are a merger team in the AFL, yeah.
Also, it was the North Sydney. No, was it?
About the Bears?
Yes, North.
That's a
Was it
difficult
in
one.
The AFL?
Oh, in the AFL?
Yeah.
The Sydney Swans
it
are
was
not
a
a
Sydney
merger.
team that merged with the.
No. They moved the South Melbourne Bloods to Sydney.
Where'd the Crips go?
Very funny. No, they did. They moved the South Melbourne Bloods, as they were known, because they had a white jersey with red
It was
on
the
it.
Brisbane Bears.
Yeah, the Brisbane Bears
Yeah, sorry.
and the
that's what I was
Fitzroy Lions.
thinking. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what I'm remembering.
Yes.
Crazy to move a club from Melbourne to Sydney.
Yeah, it's the only
Anyway.
merger. It's the only merger in the AFL's history.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other NRL teams. We've covered St George Illawarra.
Yeah, West Tigers. I guess Sean will tell us if there's
North
more.
Sydney and the Manly Seagulls merged to form the Northern Eagles, and then they
That's right.
just basically deleted Norths entirely and just went back to being the Manly Seagulls.
Mm.
So they got rid of all the colours associated with Norths. They got rid of all their history, just basically deleted them.
Actually,
My grandma
and back-
hated the Sea Eagles.
Yes.
It was great.
Historically, I would be a Bears fan. Being born in New Zealand, being raised in New Zealand. My parents are Bears fans because they lived in North Sydney at the time. They used to go to all the games.
So New Zealand had nothing to do with that. You just wanted to say that you were a New Zealander.
No, but it means that I don't have a local team that I would then follow based on where I'm
Yeah.
from. Because the South Island doesn't give a rat's bottom about the Warriors. Facts. Anyway, so yeah, like my parents were Bears fans, and I didn't have a local team to support, so theoretically I'd be a Bears fan, and they can't do it. Used to play
Yeah.
with the Bears scarf as a kid.
They're talking about bringing them back.
Yeah, they can talk about bringing it back all they want, but it still leads to the same issue of
as I
having
say,
another
there's
damn
a,
Sydney
There's
team.
a lot of calling for like a Central Coast.
Yeah, the Hunter Mariners
Yeah.
were a pretty strong team. Hunter Mariners, yeah, that existed for long enough that they probably could have stuck around.
Mhm.
But you know, along with the Crushers and the Rams and the Perth Reds,
The Crushers had a great jersey and
it's a great jersey.
Just great branding.
mascot.
Wasn't it a train?
It was a train.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was a train.
I
They
would
had
love-
really, really, really ugly colors though.
I would
It was like
love-
a navy blue and a bronze.
Yeah, it was like
Love.
it was tan. It was like your shorts. It's not a nice color.
And then-
Imagine a mascot running around as a train.
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah.
dude going like this.
Just nailing into things.
And
Yeah.
what was the yeah, I'm trying to think of the team before the Titans.
The Seagulls.
The Seagulls.
The Seagulls were also the Giants, and there was a lot.
The Gold Coast had a team before the Titans.
No, I know, and they were all of the above.
Yeah, okay.
Where are we? Super League.
That's the real Gold Coast team.
The Gold Coast,
because it was like North Coast Crushers, wasn't it? The Crushers were
the
like
South Queensland Crushers.
Wasn't there a Rams?
The Adelaide Rams.
Yeah.
Was there? I don't remember that.
Adelaide Rams. So the Gold Coast team were they had so many mascots. It's awesome. So many different mascots.
I mean,
Chargers. They were the Chargers last, but before that, they were the Tweed Giants and the Gold Coast Seagulls.
I was thinking of Chargers.
Yeah, the Chargers, and they wore like purple and the most 90s colors ever. Like
Bring them back.
Like their logo looks like the intro to Saved by the Bell. Like it's
yes,
it's the most. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a Pepsi ad. Like
I'm going to go look up an old Chargers jersey later.
Oh, you would. The Rams
jerseys.
jersey
could look like a vanilla Coke can.
The Rams, yeah. Dolphins. Sorry, guys. So after this Bradley report came out, more and more people were starting to get interested in and trying to fix the issues that they had. Ahead of the 1995 season, which was the first to be run by the ARL, hence the logo on my jersey, after the New South Wales Rugby League relinquished.
Not the
New South Wales Rugby League, yeah, 92. After the New South Wales Rugby League relinquished control of the premiership season, each club received a letter of invitation to a comp that they were already in.
Cordially
invited, yeah. This letter included admission criteria.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. The main factor was the
No
ability to
homeless
attract.
club.
Yeah. No homeless allowed. The main factor was the ability to attract a minimum average crowd attendance of 10,000 people, which is quite a lot. Quite a lot for some of those small fields.
Yeah.
That's Leichhardt Oval packed to the brim every single game. That's tough. That's a tough titties. That's what that is. Anyway, Balmain, Easts, Gold Coast, Illawarra, Parramatta, Penrith, Souths, and St. George and Wests all failed to meet the criteria. They weren't able to consistently attract 10,000 people to their things, partly because their stadiums were so damn small.
Yeah.
Because there's too many people. It's like Sydney's a big place, but there's just only so many.
They would have only had one stand and then would have been just
grass hill.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's so small. Around the same time, the privately owned Broncos transferred a 20% share to Northern Rivers Limited. With this came a letter from the league stating, under the terms of the league's constitution, it is necessary that, without exception, all clubs which wish to participate in the league's premiership competition must apply each year for admission. No club has the automatic right to participate in any year's competition, and the league has the unfettered right to reject any club's application for participation.
You say the Broncos at the time, they'd only be
A couple of years old.
8 years old?
Roughly. 1988 was their first year in the season.
87.
So 7 years. No, they didn't play 87. It was 88.
Oh.
So what did they do beforehand?
They didn't have a Broncos
exist.
team. They didn't exist.
It didn't exist.
So
I'm sure they were founded in 87, but they mightn't have played until
88 is the first season.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, they didn't have a Brisbane team at all.
Yeah,
Like
you were
all
just
these-
talking as if you just said the Broncos had.
Oh, sorry. The
Ownership
Broncos
and
were a
stuff.
privately owned team.
Yeah.
They transferred a 20% of their share to Northern Rivers Limited. Who's that? It's really not important. But basically, they transferred a portion of their ownership. And that meant that the NRL were like, okay, we've got to like push the ground rules out to them straight away, which is why they got this nasty letter.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. In these early days, the goal was to create a new top grade competition, right? This is what they wanted to. This is why Super League came out. They wanted to create a new top grade competition to be truly nationally run rather than New South Wales League, right? And the ARL wanted to do it, whether it was to fix their league and make it national, make it actually seem national, or whether it was Rupert Murdoch to come along and just make his own one.
And like, I don't know if you get to it in the future, but State of Origin is still going at this point.
Yes, State of Origin is still going at this point.
And at that time, it would have been the top league players playing like local clubs from Queensland, or it had that. Would it have changed by then? Wouldn't it? Originally, State of Origin was like the New South Wales Rugby League, like all those clubs.
Yes,
like playing like Ipswich Jets players.
Yeah, effectively. Yeah,
wasn't it who you played for at the time?
No, it was where you were from. So
No,
originally,
it was who you were playing for at the time.
No,
because that was what the big shift was. That was what we know as State of Origin now is not what it was originally.
it's a little bit, yeah. They changed the rules lots of times in the mid 2000s due to less about where you were born and who you played for, but about your earliest representative level football out of juniors. Like they've made it so complicated, it's not funny. But yeah, so it was just, State of Origin came out in 1980 when Queensland started playing against New South Wales. So it hadn't been around that long at this point. And it was popular, but back then, the Queensland Stars, people followed them so much because that was the only time they got to see them play at the highest level. I mean, watching Wally Lewis play for the Gold Coast Seagulls at the time when they were playing, and then also originally for the Winner Manly Seagulls as well in the Q Cup equivalent at the time. I can't remember what it was called. It was the best time you could watch them. But
it would have been something like the Winfield Cup or
something small.
Jumbo Jim's cigarettes. Cup.
Jumbo Jim's cigarettes.
Jim's
anyway,
gardening.
so in 1994, the first steps to create a new competition were to approach the teams that were most disenfranchised by the current situation that the New South Wales Rugby League and the ARL had created to try and form something new. The Broncos being the main team.
Yeah.
Because they were not happy with the ARL and the New South Wales Rugby League as a whole, as well as Canberra, Newcastle, and Auckland. Basically everyone outside of Sydney. With this, the first proposals begin to be written up for this whole Super League thing. Right now, all of this came about initially because of pay television. So Channel 10's rights to rugby league had run out and they weren't able to renew them. So Kerry Packer.
I was going to say Channel 10. What?
Yeah. So Kerry Packer coming along. And he was like, I'm gonna purchase the rights, and I'm gonna buy out the pay television rights and also the free to air television rights, and I'm gonna own it. It's gonna be fantastic. Then Rupert Murdoch came along, and he went, "No, I want to buy the pay television rights." And they went, "No, you can't do that." And he went, "But I want to. I have money." It's like, "No, you can't do that." He goes, "Well, that sucks.
Have money, want footy."
Yeah. He goes, "But I can make lots of money with this. I've got lots of money. I can make it good." And it's like, "No, you can't do that." So he's like, do my own damn thing then. It's very Ferrari like. Very Enzo Ferrari. No, I'm going to make my own league.
Well, I'm going to go have my own league and it's going to have blackjack. And
yeah. And it's something so stupid and so petty.
It sounds very similar to what happened recently with golf, PGA and the live.
Oh,
yeah. It is something you see happen all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone wanted more money.
Happened with rugby league, happened with cricket, happened with golf, happened with IndyCar in the US, happened with, they're trying to do it with EPL. Yeah.
So anyway, so Newscorp are like, and Rupert Murdoch, we're gonna try and do this. We're gonna try and make this top league competition. Now they're
so out of character for News Corp to be involved in something that doesn't benefit people. Weird.
Their first plans for this were to basically take what was already existing and then kind of add a tier above it that he had control over and News Corp had control over, but was in cahoots with the ARL. That's the original plan. It wasn't to create some rival league. It was, no, we'll just take this and we'll just make a new one, similar to what they did with the Premier League in the United Kingdom. They had existing league football, association football, and they went, we're going to add another league, the Premier League, and then that's all going to be included in all of this process. And that's what they wanted. They wanted this top tier to be able to be relegated and promoted as they had with under 21s and Colts and all the other sort of stuff in juniors, second grade and third grade. Now, no one cares about any of that, but that was just as popular back then. It's even now, you go to local football, you watch all the lower grades first because it's part of the process. So the big proposals needed to be written up to sort of work out how they were going to do this. So the plan was, it had 5 main steps for the initial proposal. They needed to approach the 4 continuing teams that they had, which were Brisbane, Canberra, Newcastle, and Auckland, to secure a 7-year commitment. So they were teams that they wanted to move into their own league. Meet with the representatives of the ARL in a casual, pleasant atmosphere and offer concessions such as allowing the ARL to conduct test matches and retain the profits from those matches. The ARL was
specific.
Yeah, the ARL was also to be given a grant to promote the game. So the idea was he's going to provide money to the ARL. So it sweetens the deal, really. Meet at short notice with representatives of the 11 Sydney clubs and Illawarra and offer a share in teams, right? To be able to then bring them into the league in their own way. where there was more than one club in one area, each club was then to be offered a percentage share, like ones that are super close together, like Sydney City, Eastern Suburbs, Roosters, and the Rabbitohs, which are just right there. Announced that Super League was happening and to explain its structure and then deal with the other clubs not included in the arrangements, such as the Paul Crushers.
Oh.
They were never in talks. Then no one wanted them.
Imagine being so small as a professional team that you're not even invited to the
Not even invited.
not
yeah.
even invited to the coup.
Yeah. So in October 1994, the board of the ARL also had a special meeting
So this is
to
now
discuss
10 years on from that first.
from the first rumblings. So they had their own special meeting to discuss several issues, including Super League and the reduction of Sydney teams. Right. So they were like, okay, like this is going on. Rupert Murdoch's trying to create this league and trying to create this league and do all this other stuff. We got to work out what's going on. That like two different parties are now coming up with war plans. After the meeting, the ARL chairman Ken Arthurson, an important person in this. There's lots of people with really boring sounding names, but if you could remember one, it's Ken Arthurson.
Ken Arthurson.
Yeah, if you could remember Ken Arthurson, Rupert Murdoch, and Kerry Packer, that's all of them. But I'm not going to talk about Kerry Packer much more. He's not that important in this. Ken Arthurson warned the Broncos that they faced.
Paco.
Ken Arthurson warned the Broncos that they faced expulsion from the league if they continued any talks with Super League. So they were on thin ice because they were partially privately owned. They were new to everything at the time, and because they were the ones that expressed the biggest concern. So basically, they made the most ripples. Now they approached the Broncos about this and told them that they could be expelled from the league, and they talked about some loyalty agreements that they'd made. Right? Because at the time that News Corp was doing this, they had made a bunch of clubs sign a loyalty agreement, which was absolutely insane. Like they were like, no, you have to, agree to play for us for 5 years, essentially. Like, and they got them to legally sign this contract saying, you're all going to be involved in this for 5 years, even though they'd already said, oh, you don't meet this criteria and that criteria. They were like, we need to lock this down.
So is this the ARL doing
yeah,
this?
Yeah, the ARL had the ARL put out loyalty agreements to all the clubs to get them to sign on.
Yeah, okay.
Just to be clear, this is on the News Corp side.
No.
Okay,
so
this is on the
ARL side.
Yeah.
So News Corp are like, we're going to create Super League. And then the ARL are like, we need to shut this down. So how do we start this process? So they got them to sign loyalty agreements, which was just, it wasn't very good. It was pretty messy. And but it was just so toxic. They're like, you got to sign this loyalty agreement, but also you're going to face expulsion if you do this. And also you don't make enough money because there's no one at your grounds. Like it was just, it was just legal crap flying in every direction.
That's what confused me because you're like, you need to promise you're going to play for us for 5 years, but you don't get 10,000 people. You're not in the league.
Yeah.
You're not here anyway.
Yeah. It's like desperation.
Why would you want to go there?
Like it's really clear, like desperation tactics, basically, of like we need to like start locking things down because everything is going to turn pear shaped really, really fast. Anyway, News Corp was developing the proposal to put forward to the ARL about the new league. So they'd come up with what they thought was a basic plan, but they needed to actually create a solid enough proposal that the ARL would go along with their concepts. Right. So at this point, they still wanted to be in cahoots with the ARL to make this happen. We hadn't turned into 1996, right? Everything's all right. 1994, we're going to make it all work. We're going to have this league and it's going to be cool. The ARL is going to like it. We're going to give you money. So we've got lots of money. It's going to be good. So they needed to come up with this plan. And part of that plan was how they were going to structure the league specifically. 12 professional teams, existing 20 teams to remain in first division, but not the premiership division, and the other competitions within New South Wales, Queensland, and the ACT. News being shareholders in all of the 12 Super League teams. The ARL continuing to be the governing body for rugby league and retaining responsibility for test matches. And News being responsible for promoting rugby league nationally and internationally and providing finance. That was their first, this is our structural plan. Aside from all the other funding stuff. Distilling all of these legal documents down was challenging. There's a lot of boring mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, you were telling me about how
oh man, it was
mind-numbing it was.
Yeah, well, like the loyalty agreement thing, I was looking at it, I'm like, I can't talk. This is so boring. I can't.
Yeah.
I just need to explain this in the best way. So they've started their plan. They've already talked to the Broncos. They've pissed off the ARL. The ARL is like, no, we need to lock everybody down with these loyalty agreements, even though we've told them that they could face expulsion. And now they're coming up with a solid structure to promote this plan. up next is talk to teams to get everything right. But at this stage, everything was getting ready for News to put forward their proposal to the ARL. But first, they had to work through their tactics. So I've already said that they were playing ball, but they had a few different plans.
I'm still confused why the Broncos were singled out. It's
because they were a privately owned.
Because they were the only privately owned team. Okay.
So,
who was everyone else owned by?
They were like shareholder owned by New South Wales Rugby League and the ARL.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Whereas the Broncos were a private team.
Hmm.
So they needed to.
Do we know who the owner was?
Apart
from the 20% share
of Northern Rivers.
Yeah. Daryl Bronco.
Wally Lewis.
My dad.
Just throwing off.
Daryl Braithwaite.
Yeah, Daryl Braithwaite. Guy Sebastian owned the Broncos.
I don't get that one.
It's just naming people.
Well, I said Daryl Braithwaite because he had a song called Horses.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
That's the.
Yeah, well, Guy Sebastian, Rob, Shannon, Noel. Don't forget.
Nothing to do with horses or Broncos.
Nah.
I
was just naming people. I didn't notice
I
the
was
theme.
making a horse connection. What about... I can't think of his name. Oh, mate, who got arrested in his Bronco on the highway?
OJ Simpson.
Him.
Yeah.
He was the owner of the Broncos.
OJ was Fry.
Well, he owned a
Can't
Bronco.
even say it seriously.
Who knows? There's
future episode.
He so murdered those people.
Yeah.
Future episode.
Yeah. I have thought about doing OJ.
There's so much stuff about the it's not important to know the Broncos.
Sorry, I asked.
Anyway. So they were getting ready, they were building their proposal, they've got their structure, and they need to work out their main tactics for how they're going to approach it. Are they going to play it nice, or are they going to try and stab the ARL in the back to get where they need to go? Part of this was they needed to get feedback. So they sent out this super secret document to a bunch of clubs that was called, what was it called? The Super League. Oh, I had it written down. The Super League Confidentiality Deed, to gain feedback from the different clubs about small adjustments that needed to be made before their proposal. Basically, they wanted all their eggs in one basket before they tried to do this. Various teams got back to them, provided small details, but they all claimed they had nothing to do with it. All claimed they had nothing to do with it. If the ARL came knocking, they were like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about."
What is it? Super what? So we don't play football.
Yeah. Rupert Hurdoch?
We play soccer.
Yeah, this is round ball. Anyway.
We play the kickies.
Do you remember what the Super League emblem looked like?
Yeah, wasn't it like a shield with a football on it?
It was.
Oh, yeah, it was. Yeah, it was like a blue
football.
S. Yeah.
It was a white football, I think like on a 60-degree angle, and then inside the football had the blue S.
Yeah.
January 1995.
Oh.
Right? So they've gone through the whole 1994 season of trying to work out how they're going to do it, talking to the disenfranchised teams that are having troubles.
Have they spoken to the Cowboys yet? Because wasn't this their starting season?
The 1995 was the start of their season.
Yeah.
Yes. So January 1995, the season hadn't started yet. So they weren't talking to the Cowboys at this time. So in January, News was ready to put forward their proposal and structure to the ARL.
Yeah,
they'd gotten their feedback. Let's shoot from the hip. Let's do it. Sorry, I nearly swore there.
Hit send on the email.
So they go in, they have this huge pitch, and they put it in. Ken Arthurson says it's poop. Hates it. Says it's absolutely terrible. He goes, "No, this is stupid. This is not the way forward. Creating a new tier above this tier and all this other sort of stuff." He hates it. Thinks it's absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
But for people listening at home, chairman of the ARL.
Yeah, the chairman of the ARL, Ken Arthurson.
It's not really surprising that a third party comes in and says, "Hey, we're going to revolutionize your thing," and they're like, "Actually, I think that you're full of garbage. You know, I actually think that I've got the right way to go."
He was like, "This is not happening. Like, we're going to keep it the way it is, and we're going to fix it ourselves." Control of the top tier of rugby league would stay with the ARL, and then it would be fixed from within. The ARL then sent out reminders to all teams, reminding them of their loyalty agreements, and that they would consider expulsion again if the teams fail to maintain loyalty to the ARL.
Hello, remember that document you signed?
Yeah. Now, funnily enough, that document that they signed,
you signed while we held a gun to your head.
Yeah. Later in the court, that they would deem that this was a gross breach of trade practices at the time, and it was unacceptable.
Amazing.
Which helped to facilitate the go ahead of the Super League for the
Yeah.
1997 season. Foreboding. Anyway. So tactics. ARL's not playing the game.
Mhm.
So Super League, like, bugger it. Let's
Create our own competition.
let's create our own damn competition.
Yep.
So Super League decided to go at them. So where do you start? At the time in rugby league, the clubs had contracts with Australian Rugby League. Players didn't. Players had contracts with clubs.
Right. So
Yeah.
players had no loyalty clause.
Not really, yeah. Like they
Yeah.
had their own funny little ones, but like they're contracted to a club that's then contracted to the ARL, but they don't have direct ARL contracts unless it's something to do with Kangaroos, right? So Super League goes at the players straight away.
Mhm.
They sent out as many agents as possible to sign up players and coaches with the goal of having enough personnel to field a 10-team competition. Just 10, but it's enough to get it through, like, and have an even amount of rounds. With the goal being pay them, and not the goal, to just throw twice their salary at them,
Yeah, right.
twice the money. At the time, rugby league players were still part-time workers. They were
Yeah.
brickies and stuff. And that was what was relatable to a degree.
Yeah, they'd work during the week and then
Train.
play
They
football on the
still,
weekends.
yeah. Like I was watching even through the 60s and 70s, they still would train Tuesdays, Thursdays, like good old amateur footy, and that
Yeah.
was the top tier of rugby league in Australia. Crazy. Now there was lots of like crazy stuff going on where they were talking about trying to fix things with funding and stuff. And a part of it was a draft. The RL thought a draft would fix issues with teams, but the problem with having a draft and then moving players around is you're from Souths. You played juniors with Souths, and you played. It was a bit early in the 90s, but then the 90s. But they were like, you've done your whole life here, and now someone's going to trade you. But you've got to move your family, you've got to move everything, you're going to move the thing, but you've still got a job. It didn't really
draft
work.
Only works if the feeder teams have no association with the teams at the top. Like, you don't have an expectation that when you finish, you will still be there.
And the flip of this was because at the time you had the issues where players wanted to play for other teams but couldn't. They were bound by the contracts of playing for their junior club. And it was messy. Like, there were so many problems going on that created this perfect storm. So throwing money at them. Not yet. That's 1998. That's 98. So throwing double their salary.
Brewing.
I mean, it was, yeah. Throwing double their salary at them is pretty.
Double the salary at anyone's.
Of anyone, that's sick.
If I'm working and another company comes to me and goes, "We're going to double your salary up," I'm going there.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was cool. A part of that, they also
Optus comes to you, boy.
I'd be an Optus shield in a minute.
Part of that was also
Data breach? What data breach?
Part of this was also that they went to the courts to challenge the 5-year loyalty agreement that the ARL had created for all these clubs, which they eventually get some little wins in there. One of the biggest moves was to sign on the English, French, Pacific Island nations and the New Zealand Rugby League federations. They went out and got the international competitors to sign on with Super League, which removed any international competition that could have been played by the Kangaroos. Super League were just like, no, we're going to snap it all up.
So they signed it so they couldn't play international games.
So you go after the players, you've got players. You go after 10 coaches, you get coaches.
Yeah.
And you've got 10 clubs. So nothing's happened yet, but you've got all these, it's like a petition. You've got all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, by the way, we've also got England who run a Super League. We've got New South Wales Rugby League who does terrible at the moment. So they'd sign anything for any money because
New South Wales.
New Zealand Rugby League,
Yep.
because no one cares about rugby league, so they'll take any money. They're a union playing country. The Pacific Island nations, same problem. French, same problem. So Rupert Murdoch throws money at them. They're like, hell yeah. This is going to be sick. This locked up the Kangaroo squad pretty hard. And it just made it completely unimportant. So after weeks and weeks and weeks of flights all over the country, secret hotel meetings, Matty John's podcast covers it really good. Talks about like players just walking in and out of hotel rooms and everyone's like, what is happening? Just they have no idea what's going on. Super League had signed up 307 players.
Wow.
Yep. 200 of which were still contracted through ARL contracts via their clubs beyond 96, right? So their club contracts were still longer than the 96 season. A lot of the other ones, like 107 of them, would have expired maybe the next year, or they were only 1-year deals. So you got 307 players and 10 coaches.
Wow.
So enough to get going.
So you got 30 players per team. You got a squad.
Yep. All on double salary.
Wow.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of money.
Clubs were benefiting. because they were getting money thrown at them to be able to talk to players.
Yeah.
Agents were benefiting because like, hell yeah, getting money.
Signing deals left and
Yep.
right. Yeah.
That
Players were
10%
happy
matters
because
now.
all of a sudden they've got like double their money. They're not like part-time brickies anymore.
Yeah, they don't have to work on a week anymore.
It was this money focus that really made it hard. And it also, it's partly what ruined the public perception of rugby league at the time, because it's like, well, now this player that I like is now just a millionaire sport player. It's less relatable than someone that does a similar job to me, or that, you know, you could still see in your local area.
It's not something I've ever considered.
No,
This
I
is
guess
in an era where people did consider
Yeah.
this
because
stuff.
before our era of it, it was touted as the people's game. It was the everyman's game.
Yeah.
Working on a week and then go play professional sport on the weekend.
Mhm.
Yeah. You
That's why
might
I
go
came
to
around.
work and meet Alfie.
Yeah, exactly. Well, for the beginning of the 1996 season, this was their plan. The teams that had been strongly aligned with Super League through player signings and officials. Wrong paragraph. Come on, Sean. It's so small. Start again. During all the crazy player grabs, Rugby League was
Keep going.
through all this player stuff. The Rugby League was also held up in the courts. So Super League had been going into the courts to compete with the ARL's 5-year loyalty agreements, just being able to make it happen. And unfortunately, the court battle was lost by the Super League. So in March 1996, the judge would rule.
I was trying so hard to
I
listen
couldn't
to
stop
you,
that from
and in the
happening.
corner of my eye, I could see John going,
For some reason, it started playing and I couldn't stop it.
Keeping momentum in this is so hard as it is. I've still got 2 more pages.
okay,
I'm trying.
John, focus. We have to help Sean.
Okay. During all of this,
It's not going to
push the
happen.
microphone again. Through all the. Through all the. No, now's your time to swap. Oh, geez. Through all the. Through all of the player swap.
You've got to wait.
With all the crazy player deals that were going on in hotel rooms and in back alleys, pretty much, which is pretty gross, but that was still happening. The Rugby League was in the courts. So Super League were contesting the 5-year loyalty agreement that the ARL had forced the teams to sign and a bunch of other stuff to try and make their league happen. And in March of 1996, the judge will rule against Newscorp. And they said they acted with dishonesty and duplicity.
Okay.
What's duplicity? It's to act deceitfully. Don't know why it needs a different word, but that's what it means, to be deceitful. So because they were aware of all these underhanded player signings, club signings, international signings, the courts are like, nah, you shot yourself in the foot. No Super League.
Right.
They stated that the ARL owned all rights to all club colours, logos, names, and jerseys. And formal orders were given by the federal court that a rival competition of any sort would not exist to challenge the ARL past the year 2000. So not until after the year 2000 could anybody challenge the ARL basically as a top tier competition, which is a pretty decent. It's 5-year
5
agreement.
years,
Yeah.
5-year agreement. So for the beginning of the 1996, the teams that had strongly aligned with Super League through player signings, officials, and managers were punished and were forced to sit out the first round of competition, as well as the players that had signed with Super League. But it was mainly just from those clubs.
Yeah.
Except the Warriors, who were also part of that, but they claimed 2 points because the forfeit was the home team, and I believe it was the Broncos. And because the Broncos had to be forcibly forfeit, but the Warriors were the away team, they claimed 2 points.
Okay.
The Tigers of their day.
Sneaky. Anyway, so
Good throwback, boy.
most of the Super League players would actually play the 1996 season. Like after the first round, they would play the rest of the season, except the Raging Bull, Gordon Tallis. He sat out the whole season of St. George.
Wow.
Yep. So he was in St. George at the time, and he sat out the entire season until 1997 when he started with the Brisbane Broncos in the Super League.
So it must have been 97, 98, the Broncos won.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
So he cracked it.
Yep.
Right. Good on him.
I was thinking that the Broncos won 96, but it wasn't. It was
It was
92,
97.
93, 97, 98.
Yeah, except 97 isn't counted because it was Super League. It is counted, but it's, yeah.
Yeah, they do count it as a back-to-back.
Yeah. So October 1996, the season's done and dusted. It was another, season. And an appeal by Rupert Murdoch.
Murdoch.
Rupert
Murdoch.
October 1996, the season's done and dusted, and everything went fine, other than the punishment at the first round and then Gordon Tallis sitting out. Rupert Murdoch and News Corp launched an appeal in the federal courts about the ruling of you can't have a competition past the year 2000, and they won. A bunch of other judges were like,
Actually,
no, this is a really good idea.
Yeah, so
I actually want to see Gordon Tallis play.
so
Yeah.
they appealed the appeal?
They
Because it was
appealed
appealed that it gave
Nah.
him the 5-year thing.
No,
No,
they,
it was-
no, they were challenging the 5-year rule and trying to create Super League. That wasn't an appeal. They took the 5-year deal to court,
Okay.
and then they were ruled no, and also no, you can't do this.
By the way, wild decision by the ARL to punish people
Yes.
who were already pissy with them.
Yes,
Wild.
yes, I know. It's crazy. So they overruled this,
Mhm.
which is just insane.
If you win
Ken
an appeal,
Arthurson-
is that just it?
Kind of, yeah.
Let
mean,
them
they
have
can-
Super League.
Yeah, and Ken Arthurson was a bit sad. The chairman of the ARL at the time was a bit upset.
Big sad boy.
Yeah, so he stepped down.
Oh,
He stepped down. He'd run the ARL for I think 14 or 17 years at this time.
and you just went, you know what? That's it.
He's like, this is a kick in the guts.
Yeah, wow.
He had some quote. I'll bring it up. It wasn't very good. But it's just really weird.
It
Like
does.
what he said was really weird. Where's the quote? I omitted it from the script because I just thought it sounded weird. But now I feel like I have to bring it up.
Daddy government said I can't keep my.
Where are we?
Friends.
Kerry Packer, Rupert Murdoch.
Good podcast.
The ARL appealed their case, but was dismissed in November. I'll get to that. Anyway, so the quote,
Mm.
Ken Arthurson, he said, I was furious, hurt, bewildered. I felt as if I had been run over by the southern aurora.
The Aurora Borealis
The train.
at this time of year.
The train. The
Localised
southern aurora, the
in
train.
your kitchen.
The train. He thought he'd been run over by a specific train
Yeah,
that ran
train
between.
that we've always talked about.
I know. The
Yeah.
most clearly. And this is what I mean about the quote being weird. I was like, the southern aurora. No, the train.
Everyone knows about. the
Everyone knows
Southern
about
Aurora.
the train that went between Sydney and Melbourne.
Ribbo's the driver.
hmm
Yeah, mate, Ribbo.
The ARL then appealed the decision of the overturning of the
Okay,
Super
yeah.
League, and it
And they lost.
it was dismissed.
Mhm.
According to Arthurson, he said it took less time than it took to play half a game of football.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Otherwise known as 40 minutes.
After the
It was
court
35 at the time.
after the court decision for the Super League to go ahead, guess who rears his ugly head again? Kerry Packer.
Hey.
Yeah.
He makes up with Rupert Murdoch.
My friend Rupert.
He's like, no, I want to be friends with Rupert now. Like, Rupert
Yeah.
Murdoch wasn't happy with Kerry Packer that he wouldn't let him buy the TV rights, and they fought at each other about things. And now Kerry Packer's like, no, we're going to make up.
actually,
gonna
he's my friend.
Yep. And they agreed to basically, so Nine, which was Kerry Packer, he got the free-to-air rights for Super League, and then Rupert Murdoch had the pay TV rights to Super League. So they made up and joined forces, which is I didn't make the money I wanted, so now I just can't beat them, got to join them.
They Captain Planeted it.
Captain Planeted it. So here we are,
The forces combined.
1997.
1997.
We're here. We've made
The
we've made it.
formation
All three of us are alive.
Super League.
Page 4 out of 5. We've made it to 1990.
Super League.
Super League.
Super League. I can't wait to watch the Broncos versus Roosters.
What are you, like 5?
4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John was 403.
Mm-hmm.
John was already on his third decade.
Yeah, John actually created rugby league.
I think I was last year of primary school.
That's okay. Yeah. I was still in New Zealand and I came at the end of the year to Australia. Unsurprisingly, no one gave a rat's
Cheers.
bottom. The only thing I can remember from 1997 that anyone talked about was Princess Diana dying.
Oh, yeah. That was a thing.
That's a good, like,
R.I.P. to a real one.
yeah, you know how everyone has those like pinnacle moments in history that they remember? My mum is Elvis dying. A lot of people our age is Michael Jackson dying. 9/11.
Don't care.
I remember 9/11.
9/11's.
Yeah,
I think,
9/11.
let's just say, people our age, it's 9/11.
It's 9/11.
Actually, basically everyone, it's
and,
9/11.
and Princess Diana was a big one in
And for
1997.
everyone, we were asleep.
yeah.
So here we are, 1997. Super League is
Yep.
ready to go.
Yep. Give us the teams. Who was in the Super League?
The Adelaide Rams.
Yeah.
Yeah, playing at Cooper's Stadium in
Cooper
the
P.
West in
And
Hindmarsh.
underground.
Yeah, the soccer field.
Okay.
Near my house.
I saw it.
Aaron has seen it. Pretty small stadium. Pretty nice though, but real hot. The Auckland Warriors. At this stage, they're called the Auckland Warriors, not
Yep.
the New Zealand Warriors. Very important. They should have stayed that way. The Brisbane Broncos.
The who?
The
The Brisbane
The Brisbane
Broncos.
Broncos. Not the Brisbane Broncos.
The
Brisbane Rhinos.
Brisbane Broncos.
Brisbane Broncos.
The Canberra Raiders.
Sick.
Canterbury, omitting the word Bankstown Bulldogs.
Okay, back to the one before. The
Canberra Raiders. Yep. Bike and clap, stolen by anyone with any Raider heritage in their names at this point.
Bulldogs.
The Canterbury without Bankstown Bulldogs, because they just didn't include that. The Cronulla Sharks. The Hunter Mariners.
Nice.
North Queensland Cowboys. Moved over to Super League. The Penrith Panthers. Goddamn Penrith. Sick of them. Yeah, Penrith Panthers moved over to Super League. And the Perth Reds.
Perth Reds. How many
Reds.
teams is that? Is that 10?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. So
It's actually a pretty good roster of teams.
Yeah, it's spread. It's evenly spread, and that was the goal from the start. You know, you've got
a nationwide
yeah, Cronulla's.
You've got Perth, you've got Adelaide, you've got
Brisbane, Queensland.
not Melbourne.
No.
And
New Zealand.
you've got Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. You know, they're a Sydney-ish
It's
team.
an old club.
It's an old club. Cronulla is 40 minutes south of Sydney, but you know the Shire is close enough. Penrith represents the western suburbs. Penrith is out that way.
Oh, yeah, so like every region of Sydney is also covered.
Most of the regions, yeah. It's pretty good. Then
So that would have left in the NRL competition.
in the NRL, the ARL competition of 1997, you had the Balmain Tigers, the Gold Coast Chargers, the Illawarra Steelers, the Manly Sea Eagles, the Newcastle Knights, the North Sydney Bears, Parramatta Eagles, the South Queensland Crushers. They kept going for a little bit longer.
Parramatta Eagles.
Parramatta Eels.
You said Eagles.
My mistake. There's so many mascots at this point.
I just figured it was one of those weird
Yeah,
teams
I
that
wrote them
changed.
shorthand, so yeah, I deserve that.
I'm thinking, was there
I just wrote
amalgamation?
Para. I just wrote Para, but yeah. Anyway,
So the
Parramatta.
Eels, yep.
Yep. South Queensland Crushers, South Sydney Rabbitohs, the St. George Dragons, the Sydney City Roosters, and the West Magpies.
Yeah, okay.
So
So less diversity.
less diversity.
2 Queensland teams and everything else was in
Everything
New South
else is in, pretty much everything else is in Sydney.
Yep. Okay.
So who
Except
do you have
for-
in Queensland? You had the
In Queensland, you had the Chargers
And the
Yeah.
Crushers.
and the Crushers.
And
That's
then
it.
Super League had Broncos and Cowboys.
yeah.
Yep. It's pretty wild. So the season kicks off. Sorry, I had to have to touch it. I know you don't like me touching it.
Just stop talking.
Well, then cut that bit. Just you're gonna have to edit so much anyway. We're over an hour, nearly an hour and a half at this point,
I think that's a battery warning.
or a storage warning.
All right, we'll finish without it. And then
We'll finish without it. So the season kicked off poorly.
Ooh.
Ooh, yeah. Both comps were spread way too thin.
They didn't knock on, did they?
kicked it out on the full.
Kicked it out on the full.
Yep.
Okay, that's a better one.
Yeah. Both comps tried to do things to keep fans interested,
Yeah,
but
okay.
ultimately they divided the fan base. If you wanted to watch Super League, you had to pay for Foxtel. If you wanted to watch the ARL on pay TV, you had to pay for Optus TV, which was entirely different and still around at the time.
My God, I remember that.
Yep.
You unlocked a memory.
Yeah, and Channel 9 had the free-to-air rights for Super League, but ARL was pretty much stuck in Optus land. Like it wasn't very good. They were giving away tickets to games because no one was there. They had poor attendance because, you know, Sydney, you got 2 different comps going.
Yeah.
And all the Sydney teams are playing in one comp, but they're only playing each other. So, you know, let's say you're an expat Queenslander that really wants to see the Broncos play in Sydney. You know, you go to Leichhardt, tough titties, you just watch them play another Sydney team.
And also, you've probably got 5 games within 40 Ks of each other.
Yep, and people can only do so much.
Yeah.
Plus in an era where maybe not all of those stadiums were lit very correctly, so they would have been played during the day or the early afternoon, people still at work. So it was bad. The only upside really through that were the international games weren't bad. Super League had control of the international games, and several series were actually played in terms of internationals. Where are we? I had it right in front of me.
Was there a state of origin that year?
There was a state of origin that year. Yeah, like they had an Australia versus New Zealand test match, a Great
It was
Britain.
ARL.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah, ARL, yeah. Australia and New Zealand, because it's still governed by the Queensland and New South Wales Rugby League.
Yeah.
It's their own thing. They actually still had a semi-state of origin. I'll get to that in a sec.
Okay.
The test matches, they had Australia and New Zealand, Australia and Great Britain, and New Zealand and Great Britain were all covered under Super League because New Zealand and Great Britain had been drawn into this Super League thing. So people got to watch other countries play as well. It was pretty good. And then they held a Super League tri-series, which is the competitor to State of Origin. So they're Queensland, New South Wales, and New Zealand.
I do remember that now.
Yes. It's not too bad. Like they put on
It
some.
actually sounds like Super League was a pretty good deal.
Yeah, they had representative football that
Yeah.
people. That's good to watch.
You had teams from all over the country. You had the international stuff. You could see a game on free to air.
You could see games on free to wear. Yep. And you had an even spread of teams. The ARL wasn't real happy about the test match thing and tried to have a game against New Zealand. And the New Zealand Rugby League went,
No, thank
no
you.
one is allowed to play in that. If you want to play in that, you're going to be sweeping halls. Like, you're not
New
playing.
Zealand Rugby League says no, thank you.
Yeah, they tried to call them the old golds or something like that. They tried to come up with some, it didn't work. The ARL,
Yeah.
no, we can still salvage this.
we can do it.
Yeah, it didn't work. It was really annoying. Fans were split and it was really crappy. And it made it really obvious the greed that had sort of permeated into this to create what was. Are you just doing the thing? Yeah, the greed that had come into this to sort of keep it going. They had a few years earlier record crowd numbers at rugby league games, and now they had no one. Like, no one was going. It wasn't interesting. It wasn't. The gimmicks weren't strong enough. The fields weren't up to scratch to really support these gimmicks as well. ANZ Stadium at the time was pretty old in Brisbane. It's still old now, but like they'd moved out of Suncorp.
Lang Park.
Hey, Lang Park at the time. Yeah. That's fair. That's
It was
a good
good.
one.
Lang Park. I'd never. So I went to a few football games growing up.
Yes.
Bronco games.
Back in the 1950s.
I don't remember going to Lang Park. I don't think I ever went to the old Lang Park.
Yep.
My first memories of going to football was ANZ Stadium. Old stadium, like you said, crappy thing. But I do remember, like, one of the best experiences at ANZ is when the opposition was kicking a goal. And because it's the old aluminium stands, you could stamp your feet and it would make a hell of a noise.
Do you remember what they built the stadium for?
It's athletics.
Specifically,
Was it a Com Games?
it was
was
Com
Com
Games.
Games, yeah.
Brisbane Com Games.
1982,
82, I believe. Yep.
88? No,
80 it's
88
82.
was Expo.
Yes. World Expo 88. Yeah, but 82 Brisbane Commonwealth Games. So they had this purpose-built stadium. Still there. It's QE2. Oh, no, it's called.
QE2 Stadium now.
Yeah.
No, it's officially called Queensland Institute of Sport Stadium.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's
And there
in my
were-
head, it's still because when I moved to Australia, the Broncos still played there.
Yes.
Like 98, they were still there. 99, like it was a whole thing.
And they, for some reason, are talking about putting part of the Olympics there, which is a massive mistake.
Yeah.
Anyway,
A year of damaged games and damaged leagues with average fan attendance. It wasn't good for either. Hands are up. Yes.
I also remember one part of the stadium.
Yep.
So you had the big ring of the stadium. I believe the side we sat on was the eastern side, so you'd get the western sun. But that also had the family section, which was like a little section that would jut out from the bottom of the thing, which got you pretty close to the action. But it was just this one section of stand. It was probably like 30 rows that just jutted out from the rest of it. And it was no alcohol allowed.
Yep. No alcohol allowed. The Gabba still does a bit of that. There's still sections which are no alcohol.
I like when you have a no alcohol part of a venue.
It's good.
Like Willowbank Raceway is majority of the time no alcohol.
Yeah,
And if it is alcohol, it's one very specific spot.
Reston Pepperonis, 1300 Smiles / Dairy Farmers / Stockland Stadium, North Queensland. The best place to watch rugby league. I'm sorry. It was just excellent. You don't understand. It was fantastic. It just felt everybody there cared. The new the new Townsville Stadium is fine. 1300 Smile Stadium is just
Can't say I've ever been to that one, but the
Exactly.
best place to watch league is Suncorp.
it's not.
The
1300
upgrade they
Smile
did to Lang
Stadium.
Park to Suncorp is the best stadium in the Southern Hemisphere. The new one we went to, like the top
Townsville
tier
one.
seats we went to, were good because they were very steep. which made you feel very close to the action.
Felt like you were about to fall into everyone in front of you.
And it was great, but the best place for live sport in the Southern Hemisphere is Suncorp.
You've never been to the MCG, have you?
Okay, I'll take cricket out of it. The best place for league, and I'd say soccer.
Yeah, okay, legal soccer.
Soccer,
But
there's
sport-
20
If you could
people
feel it.
there.
If you could sport, the Southern Hemisphere sport capital is the MCG.
Okay,
Anyway,
fair.
Super League.
Super League,
Suncorp is the best
1,300 small
square
stadium.
in the Southern Hemisphere.
We can-
Rectangle stadium.
You two can't compare it because you can't go to the stadium and it was not there. Anyway, it was fantastic. They also have funny little family sections. Moving on. So difficult years for both competitions, but decent grand finals. So we get to the end of the year. It's Newcastle and Manly in the ARL grand final. And it was pretty historic. Newcastle winning. They're not that older team. It was pretty spectacular. And the Broncos dominated Super League. They just demolished everybody
Yeah.
and smacked Super League around.
You talk about Super League. I don't remember the ARL competition.
No.
I remember the Super League competition, probably because I
you
was a
would have been
Broncos fan
able to watch
Yep.
it.
and the Broncos dominated.
Mhm.
Like he just said, you weren't
Yeah.
able to watch the
I'm
ARL.
pretty sure we had Optus TV. back
And
then.
the Broncos
Oh, must be nice.
and they smacked Cronulla 26-8 at ANZ Stadium
yeah.
for the grand final
I think I was there. I have a vague memory of being at the Super League grand final.
of one of the 58,912 people there.
Yeah, I think because throughout the seasons, we used to have like family season passes and we'd sit in the family section.
Hmm.
I remember not sitting there. We were sitting up in the top corner on like one of the round sections. And it was big fireworks and all that kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure I was at the Super League grand final.
Hmm.
As a wee little boy.
Another issue through
11-year-old.
the spread of the fan base was corporate sponsorships.
Mm.
There's only so many companies that are willing to sponsor sport teams as it is, and there's only so far that you can spread that. And being that they were now having to split it between two, it's hard enough when there was 20 teams, but now through two different competitions, it's even harder. And so many teams still found themselves in really difficult financial situations by the end of the season. And after a difficult year, the ARL announced that it was forming a new company to manage the top tier of rugby league and invited Super League clubs to participate. So the ARL are like, this didn't work. We can't run independent. You guys can't run independent. We're going to form a new company and a new organization to run the top tier. Do you guys want to be a part of it or not? Rupert Murdoch, a little bit falling on his sword, eating his sword moment, was like, we didn't make that much money. This is not sustainable. Never say it out loud. But he's like, this
Yeah.
is not sustainable on its own. Sure, let's come to the table. So then they start entering into discussions, and then the teams themselves were also in discussions with the ARL. But the ARL executives and Rupert Murdoch were starting to talk together. After a little while, Rupert Murdoch stated that he was confident that a single competition could be agreed upon for the 1998 season. He then made an offer to the ARL to settle and then form a combined league. The representatives for all the ARL clubs came together at Sydney Football Stadium to have a discussion about whether they would allow Rupert Murdoch to settle with this or whether we should just keep going as our own entity and just sort of push him out. And they all voted 36 votes to 8 or something like that in favour of just combining. We've got to bring it all together. We've got to make this thing work. And so they did. They voted in favour and the NRL was born. Right?
So
Jointly
end
owned.
of 97.
The end of the 97 season. Yes.
Yep.
Jointly owned by the ARL and News Corp was the NRL. The biggest controversy of this, however, was that the number of teams had to be reduced to 14 teams in 3 years. So you had to go from 20 teams to 14
Yeah.
by the year 2000. That's big.
Yeah.
Like they said they needed to do it all along,
So
and they
was
said
it 6 teams need to go.
6 teams need to go.
And this is when a lot
Mergers
of those
start to happen.
mergers that we discussed
Yeah.
earlier started.
So over the following years, we would lose some iconic Sydney teams like we talked about earlier, Norths and Manly. Screwed Norths over. We got Illawarra and St George combining, Balmain and Wests.
That's 3 teams gone.
Yeah, the Newtown Jets are long gone before anyone is curious about that. They disappeared in the 80s. Not enough money.
Yep.
No matter how many hipsters wear that. Sorry, I didn't say hipsters. I didn't want to say that. But let's face it, damn hipsters buying their jerseys like I'm a Newtown Jets fan. It's like, okay, they haven't existed since the 80s. It's not a thing. They're a feeder club for Penrith, I think. I can't remember. They're a feeder club for somebody.
So you got 3 teams gone.
Yep.
You've then got the Crushers go.
Crushers
Yep.
go, Chargers go.
Yep.
And then the Perth team goes.
and the Perth team goes. But
What
then they
happened to the
also,
Rams?
the Rams eventually went. So the 1998 season kicked off as the first ever season in the NRL, ending the Super League war and changing Australian Rugby League forever. The Gold Coast and the Adelaide teams would not survive past the 1998 season. So they'd be eliminated altogether. Brisbane's continued dominance further pushed the need to reduce the teams as well. Like
Yeah,
trying to
who
spread
won the
markets.
98 season?
The 98 season was Brisbane for their fourth title. They also won the minor premiership that year. Top point scorer was Ivan Cleary.
Huh.
Yep, Andrew Johns won the Daily M that medal that year, and Darren Smith was the top try scorer. So the 1998 season, we still had Adelaide Rams, Auckland, Balmain, Brisbane, Canberra, Canterbury, Cronulla, Gold Coast, Illawarra, Manly, Melbourne, Newcastle, North Queensland, North Sydney, Parramatta, Penrith, South Sydney, St George, Sydney City, and the Western Suburbs.
Yeah, right.
So at the end of that season, they would bow out the Adelaide Rams and the Gold Coast Chargers as well. And this was also the first season of the Melbourne Storm coming into play.
Okay.
Oh, so you lost more teams, but you gained others.
Yeah, so that first year that
So
they
then-
had in 98, they didn't really lose.
So by 99, they had the 14 teams.
So I don't think they'd...
No.
Not by
Isn't that how
99.
the Rabbitohs ended up out? Because the Rabbitohs weren't an NRL team for a while. Yeah. Remember they got dropped?
No.
Yeah, the Rabbitohs weren't an NRL team.
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
Mm.
I'm trying to remember.
Uh-huh.
Where are we? 1999. The exclusion of the Adelaide Rams and Gold Coast Chargers, the joint venture of St George and Illawarra was 1999, and the reduction in the league's teams from 20 to 17, the largest reduction in the number of teams in the premiership history, with the first reduction in the exclusion of the Newtown Jets in 1983. Souths are still in 1999. So in 99, we've got Auckland, Balmain, Brisbane, Canberra, Canterbury, Manly, Melbourne, Newcastle, North Queensland, North Sydney, St George, Illawarra, South Sydney, Sharks, Penrith, Parramatta, Sydney City, and Western Magpies. So when did South disappear?
Yeah, they got like kicked out of the top league because they were really bad.
I don't recall that. No.
I'm struggling to recall it myself. Man, Canberra's 2000 jersey was dope. 2000, the season saw the debut of the West Tigers. So we had the merger of...
Yep.
That's for 2000.
The Magpies and the Tigers, yep.
And the Northern Eagles, formed by the merging of Manly Warringah and North Sydney, and the South Sydney Rabbitohs were excluded from the competition, thereby completing the NRL's rationalisation plan from 20 teams in 1998 to 14.
Yeah, right.
Yes, they excluded South Sydney in 2000.
So how many teams do we currently have?
17.
Currently,
17.
17, yes. Currently, we have...
And they're starting process looking at the 18th team.
It's going to take them... It took them so long just to get everything right with bringing in the Dolphins. And I'd hate for them to jump the gun and do it wrong. I do a Titans. Like, they boofed with the Titans. It was a crap expansion. They're an irrelevant team in an irrelevant stadium with a fan base that doesn't care. I'm harsh, but their fan base don't give a crap about them.
No, they
the
don't
stadium
really
is
have a
terrible.
fan base.
They didn't even appeal to the fan base correctly. The first TV ad they played was of a small boy running down a beach scoring a try with the commentary track in the background. That kid was from Ipswich.
Yeah, but they're not going to know that.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? They couldn't even be... Why didn't they pick someone like a local junior from TSS or something like a...
Wait, there's nothing
School.
wrong with picking a kid from Ipswich to support a team that's not Ipswich.
Yeah, Gold Coast. And then all these one-eyed Ipswich fans were all saying, Gold Coast till I die, with their best and less
Because
Gold
that
Coast
may
gear.
have happened to me in 93.
I'm still going to talk shit about Mitch Malloy being in the bloody Gold Coast Titans ad.
Because my cousin was photographer for the QT
Mhm.
and they needed a photo to, like, the Broncos are going into the finals.
Mhm.
And here's little Johnny Savage sitting on Willie Cahn's knee, Broncos jersey, in the paper.
It's okay.
So that's Super League.
That's Super League.
That was the Super Leagues.
That was the Super League. And it
It
was...
is so funny how that stuff comes together.
But like you said at the start, it was good for players. Players got
That was great for players. The
paid properly and can make a...
It made it a
Professional.
professional
Yep.
league.
They also brought in some interesting rules coming out of Super League. Kickoff things. What did they do? The Super League introduced that the swap of the kicking and receiving teams.
Yep.
I know if I try to cite it, I will get it wrong. So I'm just going to scroll down to the.
Was that the time too where they changed the point values for tries and conversions?
No, that was something else entirely.
Okay. It never used to be 4 and 2. It was 3 and 2?
I can't remember. It did used to be different. Number of rule changes were introduced from Super League and the ARL during the war that was adopted by the NRL in later years.
During the war?
Yeah, it was the 0 tackle rule in a slightly modified form, but the concept of 0 tackles. Scrums packed at 20 metres in from the touchline.
Yep.
And an ARL rule change for the 1997 season that was adopted by the NRL and is still enforced today is the popular 40-20 rule.
That's where if you kick it from within your own 40-metre line and it goes out past the 20-metre line of the opposing team, you get the ball back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also been modified in recent years that you can kick it within your own 20 to the opposing 40.
40, yes.
It's the same rule applies.
Reciprocation. I love that word. The other major difference in Super League was that the scorer kicked off to the other team as opposed to the ARL and the NRL where the scorer receives. So that was a rule that didn't get picked up.
So you could score back-to-back like 4 or 5 times before giving the ball back to the opposition. That would suck.
It's pretty wild. But yeah, the players ultimately were the biggest ones that benefited. They made money out of this.
Yeah.
And it really, the VFL was pushing hard and they were turning into a national competition at the time. AFL is, whether you're a rugby league fan or not, whether you're a diehard rugby league fan, it's the national sport. Like Peter V'landys decided to jump on and say the other day. The fact of the matter is the attendance and the money in the AFL is enormous. The field's bigger. It's
you're going to get more people because
you're going to get more people. The MCG can hold 97,000 people. It's an astonishing amount of people. West Tigers' new field holds 15,000. It's tiny, right? That's a huge thing, and they lost so much confidence in the game. If they were trying to grow it into a national game, and then they chucked the Melbourne Storm in, and it panned out in the future. But man, like the public's confidence in it dropped dramatically. For at the point, a nation that didn't entirely play one sport or the other, it wasn't real good to suddenly have the greed sort of show up. And like other sports have had that in their own way. The AFL putting all their teams in one stadium really killed their local connection. Cricket, the Big Bash changing from the original teams to made-up franchises was a stupid one, in my opinion. Players now just play for whoever the hell they want. It's dumb. But I liked the old format.
Well, like having the
state level teams,
like the
were in the
like
Big
the
Bash.
Queensland Bulls play.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I preferred that because I was a South Australian. I liked South Australian cricket, always did because Jason Gillespie was my favourite player. But yeah, it just really screwed the confidence level in the league.
Well, good job, good researching. You condensed quite a lot of boring legal drama down to something palatable.
It was hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be there. But
yeah,
I just love that like back and forth to get to what we have now.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with cricket. We'll probably tell that at some point.
Oh, World Series cricket. It's a doozy.
Anyway,
Does that include the same players?
No, but Kerry Packer's in it.
You can hit us up on the social media at Cheeky Tales Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you would like to see some images that we post them there after each episode. Share us with a friend. It would be lovely to start growing the podcast a bit more. It's the only way that podcasts grow is by recommendations from people. So suggest that people listen and then force them to listen to it in front of you until they enjoy it. Thank you, Sean. Great episode.
Thank you, Sean.
We will be back in a fortnight.
Round 1, NRL.
This weekend.
Turn it on.
Let's go, Bronx.
Yes. Let's go, Bronx.
Cowboys! There we go.
Cowboys.
So Bree's probably awake now. Anyway.
She's watching
Adam
Sandler.
Did you see Adam Sandler?
No, we're not talking Adam Sandler again.